Hello, Hana the Suburban Witch here, and today I'm going to run through some frequently asked questions about reading the tarot. Now, these questions were submitted by my Instagram followers. I popped out a story just saying, what are your questions about the tarot? And I've written down their responses ready to answer here today. I'm hoping to do a couple of episodes of this, so make it into a series, just so that I can help you guys with your own tarot reading skills and leveling up and understanding it a little bit more so that you can progress in your spiritual practice as well. Now, the first question today is some tips for interpreting the Minor Arcana. I'm going to start by defining the difference between the Major and the Minor Arcana. The Major Arcana, they look a little bit like this. This is the Magician card. They are going to have a name at the bottom stating what they are, whether that's the Tower or the Lovers, etc. They also have a number that goes from number 0, which is the Fool, to 21. That means there's 22 cards, right? Once you include the 0 to 21. So those are about life events. They are big things. They talk about the archetype of the figure or the idea in the card, okay? Then we go to the Minor Arcana. There are these ones which are numbered Ace to 10, and then we have 4 court cards. So that's your pages, knights, queens, and kings. Now, the court cards have a little thing saying what they are at the bottom, right? We've got the King of Pentacles here. But the minor and the trump cards don't have that. So how do we know what they are? Well, they have a little number, this is number 2, and a few symbols. So this here is Pentacles, so we know this is the 2 of Pentacles. If it was a different card, I'll just pull a random one from my deck. We can see there's cups here, right? That is a cups card, 9 of cups. You're going to have to learn your Roman numerals. Now with this, and this is just the standard Rider-Waite-Smith deck, now with this card, what we can start to do is start with the element. Once you know the suit and the element that it represents, that gives you a lot of information about the card. So we have 2 of Pentacles, right? So Pentacles, what are they? Well, that's Earth element. Earth element is things like your work, your career, your everyday routine, your health, your possessions, the things you own, material things, okay? Very grounded in physical reality, okay? If we're talking timing, it's slow, it's very slow. So Pentacles gives you a few tips just as it is. Then we can look at the number 2. Now, what does number 2 mean in the tarot? Well, it's duality, balance, relationships, choices. So what we can determine from that, all right, just from the element and then the number. Okay, so 2 of Pentacles. We could say maybe this is about a choice in your career, right? Or a choice in your physical location if you're moving, right? This might say you're weighing up some options. It looks like he's sort of weighing up some options. So look at the image. What is it doing? It's kind of like juggling 2 things. Maybe he's got too much on his plate. So there's a few ways you can look into this. I also like to look in the background here, right? It's a little bit wavy, a little bit tumultuous. There's some ups and downs, so ebbs and flows. So there's lots of words that can come with this, depending on the question asked and the spread position. All right, so once you weave all of that together, and it is all about weaving things together, you will be able to start making a story that this card represents for your answer. Okay, now that works with all of the cards in the minor and the majors as well, but the Minor Arcana, I always say, know your number meanings and then know your element or suit meanings. Okay, that's going to give you a big boost in the right direction when you're trying to interpret the Minor Arcana. Question number 2, when and when not to read reversals. Now, what's a reversal? That's when we pull our cards out and it pops out upside down, okay? There are 2 things here to note. Firstly, you can decide whether you read reversals the way it pops out for the querent. That means if you, my camera person on the other side, are seeing this card and it is upright for your position, then the reader, the tarot reader, may say that that's an upright card, even if it looks upside down to me. Or you can do the reverse, all right? So it is totally up to you. Personally, if I'm pulling cards out, I take it as in I'm the reader. So if it's upside down for me, then it is upside down. That is reversed, right? Whereas if it's upside down for the client, then that's fine. They're not the ones interpreting or reading the cards. They are just sitting back and watching. But that's something you need to decide. And once you have your decision, you can either stick to it hard and fast, and that is how you read tarot, or you can change it up. It doesn't matter. Listen to your intuition. tune in, take a deep breath. That's what the cards are there for. They're a tool to get you to listen to your intuition. Now, when to do it and when not to do it. Personally, I have a deck, the Dark Mansions Tarot deck, and I don't read reversals with this one. It's not something that, I don't know, when I got it, I just had that feeling, and that was, I guess, my intuition speaking, and it said, don't read reversals, so I don't. And you don't need to. If you're not comfortable with it, you don't need to. There is plenty of cards in the deck, 78 cards to give you all sorts of meanings. You don't need the opposite of each meaning or anything like that to get a thorough tarot reading, okay? So there's nothing wrong with not reading reversals. Every now and then, like I read reversals with my Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but not all the time. Sometimes I don't, depends on the spread. If I do a round the world spread, which is my 12 houses of astrology spread, I just call it my round the world, I don't read reversals in that spread because it just gets too complex. There are enough cards in the deck to give me that meaning of a reversed card if I need it, okay? Now, the tips for reading reversals when they do pop out and when you do think, oh, okay, that feels like it means something. Firstly, if you have lots of cards, so say we've got 4 cards, 3 of them are reversed or 4 of them, you may take that to say to the client or yourself, whoever is getting the reading, you might say, oh, lots of inner work needing here. Right? So we look at the reversal as a need to go in and within ourselves. So I would look at that as an overview and say, you have some stuff to work on. You have some things that you need to be looking into in yourself. This is not about the outside world and other people. This is about you. Now, if they're all upright, then I might say, you've done a lot of that work. You've been working on yourself and it shows in the cards. But what's happening here is stuff that's sort of going to happen to you rather than, you know, inside. So it's outside circumstances rather than internal. So that's one way you can look at them. Another way is, so say we have this one here, right? This is the 8 of Cups. So what we have is this guy walking away from all these cups. So upright, you know, this might be leaving a situation, leaving a relationship. Cups are relationships, okay? You know, letting go, moving on. When it's reversed, that meaning could then go to going back. I actually had this come up the other week for myself when I did one of my new moon readings, saying that, you know what, I think it's time to go back to a relationship that I had previously closed the doors to and said, nope, I'm cutting you out of my life. But you know what, maybe it's a good idea to revisit that and adjust my beliefs and my ideals and heal a bit of that relationship. So sometimes it's turning around and going back, right? Changing your mind. So the other way we can read it is a blockage, right? A blockage in that energy. So, you know, it might be reversed and you might think, okay, there's something stopping you from moving on. There's something blocking you from getting to where you need to go and taking the step to leave. All right, you're being blocked. It's a blockage of the energy of that card. Another way you can read it is, and some tarot readers do this, especially with the major arcana and the way that they go on their journey, is by giving the card before it. Okay, so in that case, this would be the 7 of Cups, but going to the card before in the sequence and saying that's where you are. If this is reversed, then you're there. I personally don't use that one just because that card is in the deck. So if it needed to bring out that energy, it would have been that card. But it's another way that you can sort of get the idea of what's the previous step in the journey that they're being blocked on. Okay. The last way some people read reversals is instead of it being a blockage of energy, it's something internal. So rather than a relationship you need to, you know, move away from, this may be an emotion. So cups are also emotions. An emotion that you need to stop feeling, an emotion you need to leave behind, right? That's a bit more internalized than externalized, okay? Rather than an action step, it is something you need to deal with inside. So there's a few different things there with reversals. And again, tune into your intuition. There's not really a wrong answer in this. You just need to trust that whatever pops into your mind first, like, oh, I need to read this reversal. Trust that. If you feel like it doesn't feel right, then flip it over and read it upright. That's fine. You just need to figure out what works for you and trust yourself when you make that decision. The next question on our list is, do the cards need to be read in order? So let's say you have a standard 3-card spread. 1, 2, 3. Do you read them from left to right, the same way we read a book? Or do you read them in whichever one pops out to you? Or what's the deal? What's the go? Personally, if you're using an actual spread, so a spread that someone has created or you have created where you want it to go, you know, past, present, future, right? You would generally go left to right, same way that we read a book. However, if you're reading for someone and you look at it and you go, ooh, we got, Tower card is in the present, future setting, wherever it is, and it jumps out at you, start with that card, right? That one might be the one that you need to go into more depth on. The other ones are sort of a little bit less in terms of the whole reading. So you need to tune in and just go, okay, well, my attention's drawn here, I'm going to read that one first. But if you're reading with a specific spread in mind, I mean, you can answer any of the questions out of order. That's fine. But you can't swap them around. So if you have put past, present, future, and then you feel drawn to reading the first one, that doesn't make it your past one. Okay, it's still in the same position, it's still the future card. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. You can, read them however you want, in whatever order, read them in the way they come out. If you don't have a specific spread and you've just sort of placed them out, then that's a little bit more free-flowing and you can kind of start where you want to. But I would say, personally, it's more like a story going from left to right, okay? Just go with your natural way you would read a book, left to right. Maybe that's the progression in time. Maybe that's the way you need to read those moments out to your client or to yourself. The next question on our list is how to know when the cards are saying no. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this using my tarot cards. All right, so when it comes to doing yes/no questions or, pursuing something and the cards are just giving us an overall no, let's do a quick, should I do something, yes or no? Look at it. That is an absolute no, okay? Tower, nope, don't do the thing. And there will be a few cards in there that are very clear like that when you ask the question. Another way, if you have a choice to make, you might say, should I do A or should I do B? And then we can have a look. And again, up to you if you use reversals. Let's just pretend this was upright just for ease of explaining to you. I would say both are not, both are good options, but this one feels nicer. This is temperance, this is patience, it's very healing, it's lovely. This is a very good option, although both are not going to be bad, all right? So there's a few ways you can read it depending on what you want. There's another little spread that I like, and I'm hoping the cards are going to behave and show me something interesting here. So this is a yes/no spread when you're looking at something. So if you're asking a question like, is this going to happen? Okay, so whatever the question is, I hate coming up with questions on the spot. Let's go with, is the quarantine going to be over by the end of the year? All right, let's just see on the current situation. So we'd go, flip it over. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to find an ace. If I get to an ace, I stop and move to the next pile. All right, otherwise I stop at 13 cards. Mr. Fern, you're in the wrong spot, aren't you? Pop him up there. All right, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so next one, I'll try and get all of these in view for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We didn't get an ace there. And lastly, move them all along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so then we look at the aces. This is basically like an ace yes or no spread. I learned about this one from Teresa Reed the Tarot Lady. I don't know if I do it the way she means it to be done, but it really works for me. All right, just neaten those little piles up a little bit. So what we can see, we've got Ace of Swords and Ace of Wands both upright. Okay, and you can see in those cards I had a lot of reversed ones as well because I do flip them around. So Ace of Swords and Ace of Wands both say yes. Okay, but because there's only 2 of them, and then there's these 2, which are swords. Like, well, no, Justice isn't, but Justice has a sword. We have 8 of Swords. It feels like, and this one's very confining and restrictive, this feels like a 50-50, right? So this is more a probability or a chance one. If it was no aces out of any of those cards, that's a no. If it was 3 aces upright, I would have said that's a 75% chance, that's a yes. If it was 2 upright, 1 upside down, and then 1 not there, it's still 50 to 75%. Okay, so see how this is sort of working together? Right now, I'd say 50% is yes, we're going to be out of quarantine, but there's still a 50% chance that we won't and we'll still be locked down, and it depends on the government. All right, Justice depends on the government. So that's my little reading on that, not what I wanted to read on, but okay, there you go, guys. Let's see how that goes. But that's a really good way to get a good idea on the chance of something going through. Otherwise, just look at the general cards and how they feel to you. Now, our second last question today is how to handle a reading when some of the scarier or more anxiety-inducing cards pop out. Now, firstly, if you are reading and you're doing this for money and you're not sure how to handle that sort of situation, then you shouldn't be taking money for it. If you're just doing this with your friends or yourself, then that's okay, and it's something that you need to learn to work through. So I'm going to go through just some of the cards that pop up that do freak people out. Obviously, the Tower, okay? The Tower straight away, you know, it pulls this out in a reading and people go, are they falling out of a building? Is that building burning down? Like all these things, it's quite dark in terms of a card, all right? So if this pops out, depending on what your reading is about, you can change your words. Instead of saying doom and destruction, you may say change, upheaval, you know, something that's going to rock your cause. But remember, the next card after this in the sequence is going to be about healing. The next card is the Star card, right? It's beautiful. It's rebirth. So think about this as the painful growing pains that we have in order to keep growing and getting bigger and more beautiful, growing into who we should be, okay? So this is how you phrase it or word it so that it's, whilst it might be uncomfortable, it's something we have to do. We can't shy away from the uncomfortable moments, you know, they are necessary to get us through to the next phase. So that's sort of one way you can start to word it, depending again how it shows up. Then there's this card, the Devil. Oh, people love to hate the Devil, right? But the Devil's actually really fun. The Devil can be all sorts of, you know, kinky sex and taboo subjects and the occult, and it's quite intimate. It can also refer to your taxes, like it's all sorts of stuff. So when we pull these out, and I often, when I've got a client there, especially one that's like my mother, who is, I pull this out and she goes, what does that mean? She doesn't really give me a chance even just before it pops out. But I'll just say, this doesn't mean what you're thinking it means from the name of it, okay? This is, you know, we've got this upside down pentagram here. This is about the physical over the spiritual, right? So there's different meanings you can take from all of the symbolism in this card. We've got some grapes here. I often like to think this is, you know, going out and having a party, getting drunk. Can also mean things like, you know, addiction and you know, tumultuous or toxic relationships. So you've got to tune into your intuition to see which meaning's popping out for you, but it's not always doom and gloom. This can be a really fun card. All right, so then there's some ones like this one. All right, so often, and it actually does happen often, this comes out in a love reading and people see this and go, oh no, heartbreak, sorrow, this looks despairing, this looks horrible. And it's not the card you want in a love reading. It definitely doesn't say everything is hunky-dory and smooth sailing, all right? But remember, this is a swords card. So I like to pull this out and just say, okay, now I know this one can look a little bit scary and it's not what we're wanting to see right now. But what the deeper meaning is these swords are about communication. So this might mean that some of the words you're saying or the other person is saying are cutting deep. You know, they're not very nice, they're quite painful. Sometimes it can even refer to the words we say to ourselves. You're being very inner critical of yourself. So this is just a reminder. It is not saying everything is doom and gloom, but it is a reminder to work on your communication skills with your partner. Okay, so it's a way to sort of ease the anxiety people can see from the imagery in the cards. There's a few other ones. Death, I'll pull that one out as well. People see that one and freak out. And there's a big hullabaloo in the tarot community where some decks actually omit this card or they'll name it something else like Rebirth or the Change card, which is fine. I think death is quite apt and fitting because sometimes it is an end. Sometimes it is an end to something, you know. We might do a spread that is, you know, what do I need to do with this relationship? And it might be death and it might just say, kill it. You don't need that relationship. Another thing here is, you know, we've got, there's a priest, there's a child, you know, all here. Death stops for no one. Death comes for everybody. Change comes from everyone, for everyone. we cannot, you know, move past that. We have this beautiful sort of flower here as well on this flag, and I like to see that almost like that wheel of time or wheel of life sort of symbolism coming through as well here, that it's just going to keep going forward. All right, and we've got to sometimes push through. So there's different ways you can sort of word it. Luckily, the imagery in this isn't quite as scary as like the tower, but just make sure when you're reading, especially for someone else, even if it's yourself, just, oh sorry for knocking the table, just make sure you are being compassionate and kind and allaying their fears and saying, yes, this might look a little bit scary. Yes, it might bring up some fears that you have, but what it can show us is this, or maybe you need to see this, and, you know, just bring that little voice down as well. I like to make sure my readings are quite soft, not, you know, oh, death card, oh, that's going to be terrible. You don't want to read like that. I mean, there are some readers who do, and that's fine, and people go to them for that bluntness. I don't like to sugarcoat, but I also don't like to deliver news that's going to hurt somebody. You need to make sure you're compassionate and kind in all of your readings, even if it's just for yourself. Last question of the day: how to know when the tarot is referring to a person or a situation? Great question. Now, generally, people will say that the court cards are what represent people, okay? So here I've got a Page of Pentacles, King of Pentacles, right? So this might be someone who is a little bit naive, immature, young, a student, someone who's learning, someone who hasn't really had to deal with some of the harsher realities of life yet. Whereas a King of Pentacles is someone who is quite well off, they have done their due, they've learnt all their things, and they're quite secure in where they are. They might be a little bit stubborn as well in their point of view, right? So there's different ways you can sort of see that these are people, right? Pages, knights, queens, and kings all generally represent a person in your life, but not always, okay? So sometimes this might pop out where someone says, you know, what should I be doing? Go back to learning. Go back to learning something new. This is where you need to, you know, take a moment to step outside your comfort zone and go back to that learning student sort of vibe where you don't know everything, and, you know, really focus on it. This guy's looking right at this coin, like his whole attention is focused on this one thing that he's looking at. So this is bringing your attention to one thing and learning something new, right? So that's not a person, that is an idea or a vibe. Become this person, right? And sometimes you can have other cards. Again, this one's popped out, but this one might refer to a person in your life, depending on the spread. You know, what do I need to get rid of? This might pop up, and you might automatically say, oh, this is a person. There's a person who's quite negative. They, you know, kick over everything that they have. See those cups knocked over? They might, every opportunity that life gives them, they kick over and destroy it. This is a toxic person you need to get rid of. All right, so there's different ways. Again, depends on the spread, what you're asking and what pops up and what your intuition tells you. So hopefully this video has helped you guys in your tarot reading skills. I would love to hear your thoughts. Pop any questions that you have about tarot in the comments below, and I will, you know, do another one of these videos soon as well, because they're really fun and I think it really helps you guys. So like and subscribe. I'm so happy to have you all here, and I look forward to doing the next video like this for you too. Bye.